Hey guys, and welcome to Beating Obesity. This is the very first episode. In this episode, we basically talk about my story, the purpose of the podcast, what you can expect from the podcast, and all that good stuff. So I really hope you enjoy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This would be the very first and official episode of the Beating Obesity podcast. You are joined today by me, Timothy Maynard, and my brethren, Sean. How you doing today, Bray?
I'm doing pretty good, Bray. How you been?
Pretty good. You excited to do the very first episode of Beating Obesity?
I'm excited, Bray, because I know nothing about this shit, hardly.
You know a little bit. But
I know a little bit, but maybe I'll learn some.
Well, see, the reason I wanted to include you in on the podcast is because this podcast is kind of for the guy trying to get started.
Yeah.
The guy or gal trying to get started, don't really know how to navigate all the crazy information out there. And they're looking for somebody who's been down the path.
Basically a crash course for people who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like people are looking, because when I want to learn something, I look for people who have done it. I'm like, how did they do it? And then
you see somebody who's done a good job, like, okay, how did you do that?
Yeah, and then you learn for them. And
but of course you make your own way as well.
I've been in this like little health and fitness exploration for almost 4 years now.
It's been 4 years. Jesus.
Pretty close to it. And I feel like once you get into it that deep, in a lot of ways you lose perspective of where you started.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good idea to include somebody who don't really know a lot about this and hasn't really experienced it. That way you can help me articulate
help bridge
to the
public,
gap between you
and the common man.
Yeah, because some of it can be really complicated, but it doesn't have to be.
I mean, once you get down to like the actual nutrition and the biology of how this affects your body and how it helps your body, it does get a bit crazy.
It gets complicated, but the basics aren't complicated. And if you can relate what works to the average person just coming into this, you don't really have to know a whole lot. You can just make some simple steps to put you where you need to be. But so that's the reason I would like to include you on this, because I believe you will help bring that. And just before we get too into it, I would like to say what this podcast is and why you may want to continue listening. This podcast is, first I'll say I'm a person who's been overweight my entire life. Like literally
from 18, 19?
19, and from literally like age 4 or 5, I was a little chubby and just continually got more and more overweight till I found myself, I was 19 and I was 330 pounds.
Yeah, I remember when you was that big.
That's a hefty size, 330 pounds. Like, no 19-year-old should be that. And there was not an ounce of I couldn't do a single push-up. No. Not a single push-up. So there was no ounce of muscle. It was just pure obesity, which hence beating obesity.
Yeah.
What happened was I managed to find ways to make a sustainable...
You said I was tired of this shit.
Yeah, basically. And I made a sustainable attempt to where it's been almost 4 years now that I've kept off over 150 pounds.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been impressed for sure.
Well, I think that's the secret is you see so many people lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight. And I've done that a lot during my teenage years. They'll do these
programs. Like, I'm not going to, like, call anything out because I don't want to, like, talk bad about these programs. But, like, stuff that you would do, like, it's set for a certain amount of days. And they're like, okay, I'm going to do this program. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this program. And then they hit the end of it. And they're like, okay, I've lost some weight. What the fuck do I do now? And then
people then usually celebrate by giving themselves
a little treat. They get
a little treat.
They get a little taste. And then they want them out.
Yeah, well, I feel like
then you just kind of fall back into your slump.
People try to rely on discipline. And that works for 3 or 4 weeks and you lose some weight. Then your discipline starts to wane, but you got to create these sustainable habits that you do every day that lead to a long-term success. But before we hop too much into that, I guess I just want to state, like, the purpose of this is I've learned a lot on the 4-year journey, and where I started is much different than where I am now, and I feel like I've gained a lot of information, perspective. I study a lot of, like, really intelligent scientists, like somebody like Dr. Rhonda Patrick, but at the same time, I'm nowhere near an expert or a scientist. I'm just your average dude who has been able to take this complex information and all of these philosophies, and this guy says do the paleo diet, this people say do the vegan diet, you need to do the ketogenic diet, and I feel like I've been able to gain a perspective where I can step back and be like, there's something to learn from all of these, but here is what the basics you need to know, and here's how you need to implement them to actually create sustainable long term, because there's no point in doing a keto diet or a strict vegan diet or any crazy, specific diet if you're just going to stick with it 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Lose 10 pounds and then put 20 pounds back on. Whereas most people find themselves, like, with all of this. Most people, I mean, if you look at the statistics, most people lose weight and then gain more than they lost afterwards. Like, almost it's very hard to sustain it. Most people don't do it, and I feel like there is definitely a path, and maybe a couple different paths that you can take to really make that sustainable. And I feel like a lot of people aren't offering that path, and that's what I want this podcast to be, is a path to make this sustainable and long term, and really make a life shift.
I think a lot of it, like, people do these, like I said, like these fixed programs, like, for a certain amount of time. Well, the problem is, it's not that these programs aren't good.
They all work. Anything you follow works if you stick with it.
Also has to do with the diet.
But a lot of it is, like, people, and I feel conflicted in a lot of ways, because in some ways I went extreme, but I feel like most people, they start like an intense program. You're going to eat this strict diet. You're going to do this intense workout program.
Yeah.
And it's like they're all excited. They're all motivated. They're all inspired. And they go 3 hard weeks and they beat the crap out of their body and they eat super strict. And then they've went from being somebody who doesn't exercise at all, who doesn't walk, has unhealthy habits, and they over 3 weeks try to become the perfect picture of health and fitness, and it's so much overwhelming at one time that the last 2 or 3 weeks, and then you have one bad day and you're like, screw this is stupidly hard.
Me a fucking double cheeseburger.
Yeah. I mean, the body adapts, and if you try to take it from a very sedentary lifestyle to being a super active, healthy maniac, like, that's going to be tough, and you can only maintain that for so long before you're just like, screw this, because that's what I always that's what all people try to do, and that's what I always try to do, is you get inspired and you go from 1 to 10 overnight. But what's the point in that if it lasts 2 or 3 weeks?
See, I don't really know much about this, but I watched your beginning to what you've done now.
You got a close-in view
Yeah.
of the transformation.
And it was like a lot of people try to stick to these certain diets. Like, you were doing, I think at the very beginning, you was doing no carbs. No carbs at all.
Under 30 carbs a day.
Yeah, so you was just eating
my original diet.
You was just eating like Slim Jims, like anything as long as it didn't have carbs. But so you can, and I watched as you would learn. You'd be like, oh, okay, this does does that. Okay, I'm gonna start eating eating some broccoli, eating some greens, and you'd be like, oh, all these foods are really processed. I'm gonna start getting like whole foods, meats like salmon and like beef, eggs, stuff that comes straight from the animal to the plate. And then I watched your 2-year span with veganism, and she's like, okay, no meat. Plants can be just super beasts for the body and basically make you better than everybody else. And now, until where you're at now, to where you're still eating a ton of vegetables, but every now and then you'll have a little bit of meat, but mostly like farmed and like,
well,
not like
there's so many different diets and philosophies, and you read one book.
Well, they all got their benefits, but they all got their disadvantages.
You'll read one book, and it's so convincing that being vegan's the way to go. And then you read like Rob Wolf's book, and then he has all this science backing up like a paleo diet, and you're like, So I've tried those though. Like I started out. We'll go back even a little bit further than that. As I said before, like my entire life, I've been overweight. Entire life, from as long as I can remember, I was always the chubby kid, and then before long, I was the fat kid, and then before long, I was the obese kid. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I can look back on it now and realize a lot of my... I had really bad asthma. I used to have to take breathing treatments. I was on inhalers. I used to have to take allergy shots weekly. I'd have to take 2 or 3 shots into my arm. Then I'd also be on 2 or 3 allergy medications. My entire childhood until I was almost 20 years old, I was on all of this stuff. And I can just remember like everything used to get to me, and it used to really, hinder my physical ability. So that made it even tougher to want to get outside and try to enjoy things. But then there was always this lingering feeling that like I would watch action movies, and I've always loved people like Bruce Lee, and you would see these crazy cool things they could do with their bodies.
I wish I could do that.
And the way they would move, and you would see kids at school running, and they enjoyed it, and I was always envious of that. But to me, like, being outside in physical activity was basically just
hell on earth.
Yeah, it was just torment.
You'd rather be inside.
But then, once I got a little older, I tried to take matters into my own hands, and I did at one point when I was about 16 lose 70 pounds.
Was that when you was doing the carbs?
That's when I first started. I visited a pediatrician.
Yeah, I remember this.
And his advice was to me, you can lose weight, just cut out carbs.
Yeah, he wasn't worried about your health, though. He was just telling you how to lose weight. Because, you can lose a bunch of weight by not eating carbs. But it's not very, sustainable. As soon as you start eating carbs again, you're going to hit that again.
But it was a plan. Like, it gave me something.
It gave you your starting point.
It gave me an action. Something that I could start doing the next day. And it was funny because at first, like, he was telling me I need to eat under 30 grams of carbs a day. And I can remember being like, screw this shit. Screw this shit. Like, I'm not going to do this. And then I remember on the car ride home, kind of thinking it over, and that was the first... It was like the first time I realized I could take matters into my own hands.
Yeah.
Like, I could do something to change this. Because before that, like, I knew I ate a little too much. I probably shouldn't drink so much pop. But it wasn't like... no one told me, like, what to do.
Yeah.
And I'd finally, for the first time, been given something to do.
Given a direction.
So, I started doing that. And I started lifting a little bit of weights.
Yeah, that's when we was going over to the pump house.
Yeah, I started lifting a little bit of weights
with our cousin. And
I got some results.
Yeah, you start getting a little bit of
muscle. It was the first time I had really saw, like,
he's like,
if you do this,
shit, something's happening.
And you do this, something changes.
For every reaction, there's an equal. What was it? For every action, there's an equal reaction.
Indeed, it's like, if you put in the work, something happens. So I started doing that, but when I look back now, my diet was like Slim Jims, beef jerky, bologna, Baconators from Wendy's
with
without the
no
buns. And
I remember that.
So it's kind of a I would categorize it as an unhealthy ketogenic diet. Is basically what I was on. A lot of fat, a lot of protein, as long as there was no carbs.
Yeah.
And what I found eventually was this was very hard to stick to, and
I mean, it is effective to a point.
it was effective, but it's very hard to stick to.
It only gets you so far.
And once you learn more, you learn a little bit more about it. Like there's also like you're depleting all your glycogen, and like you lose weight that way, and your muscles ain't holding on to as much water, so you lose that weight that way. But I did end up losing about 70 pounds. But it was very unsustainable. It wasn't really healthy. I didn't really get like tons of energy from it. It was just like I was losing weight. But I was about 16, and that was my first experience of if you take things into your own hands and you put some things into practice that you can change things. But you know, it was just, I went all in at once. I was trying things too hardcore and extreme. And it just wasn't sustainable. And 3 years later, I found myself even heavier. Put the 70 pounds back on, plus about 30 or 40 more pounds. Found myself at 330 pounds. And I feel like I just reached a point to where I had lost weight before, so I knew it was possible. I knew I could take it into my own hands, and I had finally just hit a point to where it was like, man, like I could just see. I was only 19, and I was 330 pounds. I could just see like 30. What would 30 look like? Like, what am I going to be? 400 pounds when I'm 30? Do I want to be 400 pounds? Do I want to never be able to ride a roller coaster again? Do I never want to be able to fit into an airplane seat? Like, do I want to like always be worried that like something's going to happen because of my overweightness, or that people are judging me because of my overweightness, or just you always have these things.
I remember going to the amusement parks and
I would go to like Cedar Point and stuff.
we had to try to find one of those test seats.
I would wait, but I remember one time I waited in line with all of our family. Daniel, David, Paul, all of our cousins and stuff was there, and I waited in a line, and we finally was able to get on the ride.
Yeah, I remember that.
And like the seat, it just did. I sat down in the seat, and I could not buckle it.
I remember I was a couple seats in front of you, and then we started to go up on the roller coaster. I was like looking back, I was looking for you, and I was like, I said, where's Bubba at? They said, oh, he didn't get on. I was like, why?
Yeah.
I was wondering. I was just like, why didn't he get on? And then when we got back off, and he's just like, he couldn't fit in the seat. And I was just like, damn, that sucks.
Well, it is like they try to strap you in 2 or 3 times, and then eventually, like, you just, like everyone else, every other single person fits in them fine, and they're ready to go, and they're waiting on you, and then you have to step out, and you see all your family getting ready to go on the roller coaster, and you have to go to the end. It's like, it's just like a moment of defeat. It's like, and for whatever reason, I was able to gain a little bit of clarity of this is bad now. It's really bad now. In 10 more years, this is going to be catastrophic. So, when I had lost weight the first time, we had tried a super intense little program called P90X, which of course we made it through almost all of it. Lost 70 pounds, did the low carb diet, lost all kinds of weight. All of it was too extreme, all of it was unsustainable, gained all the weight back. But there was this new program called P90X3 that was a 30-minute version. And I thought, okay, I'd done the hour version.
Yeah, I remember
before.
The original P90X was like an hour long.
Yeah, it was an hour, sometimes longer.
It was rough for sure.
And I felt like I could commit to 30 minutes. And I committed to that, and I started the low carb diet again because that's all I knew how to do. But as I started getting into the P90X program, my main motivation was I was just sick and tired of being fat. Like I didn't really care about Like be able to move efficiently and be able to go like hike and have cool adventures and be healthy and all this shit.
Tired of being fat.
I was just tired of being fat. So when I started the P90X3 though, that was the main goal. It was basically a rehashing of the first time I tried to lose weight, which works for a while until it don't work. But what changed this time was, along with the help of Mr. Tony Horton, I started to realize that exercise isn't just about being skinny or losing weight or looking good. It's like it's really this change that changes the way you feel about yourself, the way you can move in the world, the things you can do. I mean, it was so cool, like being able to like jump onto something.
Yeah.
Like I could never do that. I could never do anything with my body that was like fascinating or cool, or like it was just, the body was always in the way of doing anything you wanted to do. And for the first time, I started to realize you can enhance this machine that you live in. And if you enhance that machine, everything, like literally everything you do in life becomes easier. You can do it quicker. You can be more efficient. Things don't hurt. You want to go visit somewhere. You just get up and go. You're in great shape. You feel good. Your body moves the way it's supposed to. And you can just get out in the world and do whatever you wanted, versus the other way where I was always sick with my asthma. I would get every cold and flu. I had to have 2 surgeries with things getting infected. I was having to take allergy shots. And it was like, and then I couldn't fit into roller coasters. If I tried to do any type of outdoor activities, within like 30 seconds, I was breathing and huffing and puffing. And just basically everything I wanted to do, like the body was in the way of what I wanted to do. But if you train this thing and treat it right and fuel it properly, it's the opposite. Like everything you want to do, like you just go do because there's no hindrance.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do it, you can, like we've tried over the past couple of years, we started skiing, we started hiking and camping and like just exploring these new avenues that never would have been possible because the body would have held me back. And that's what I started to realize, and was like, oh, this isn't just about looking a certain way or not being fat. This is like every aspect of my life is better. That's when I started realizing. And that's when I started really taking it seriously. And I started diving into nutrition and the proper way to train and move. And I started learning like the reasons you should eat your vegetables, the reason you should add fruits and eat a certain way. And it started changing to trying to just look a certain way and lose weight to fueling and wanting to perform and seeing what I was capable of. And it was about a year process once I decided that, okay, once I started and once I decided that this is what I want to do, it was about a year-long process of figuring out the diet thing, figuring out the nutrition, sticking with the P90X3 program, learning the proper way to move, and learning what works and what don't work. And I lost 160 pounds. I was a finalist in the Beachbody Challenge. Got to go through all of that, which is if you do the program, you can submit your results. And I was a finalist in that and won some money. Like all this crazy stuff happened. But what is even more impressive, I don't mean to hark on myself too much, but what I believe is more impressive is I see so many people that have these crazy transformations, and then 2 or 3 years later, they find ways of slipping back into their old habits. And that's happened to me many times too. After my first round of P90X3, for like 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't do anything, and I almost quit. But you know, and that's happened several times. But I feel like I've found these tools and these principles of exercise, nutrition, and sleep and all of that work. And then these mindset tools that help you actually implement those things.
Yeah.
And it's been about almost 4 years now since we started. And not only have I lost the weight over a year, almost 160 pounds. Then I have maintained that weight loss for 3 years. You know, I've done trail races, competed in like things like that, and just it's an overall lifestyle switch. And I just want to be able to pass those lessons on to whoever wants to listen. If any of that made sense.
Yeah. We was talking about your Beachbody competition.
Yeah.
And I think I liked how you talked about Tony Horton there for just a minute, because what was actually cool about that, you actually got to meet him at the Beachbody competition.
I did twice.
Yeah, I think you got on an elevator with him, didn't you?
Yeah.
Him and Sagi.
Tony Horton is the creator of P90X, and he was kind of like really who started catalyzing my mindset change, because he's an older man who's almost 60 who could completely kick my butt in almost any physical activity. And I looked at him and was like, man, this man has been able to make it stick for like 30 some years now. And he started passing on these lessons that it's not about how you look in the mirror, not about fitting into a certain pant size, or that it's about feeling good in your body, being able to move in the world, getting all these feel good chemicals released into your brain, and just like basically it just levels up your life and you start kicking ass. And like that's when I started. And he helped catalyze that change, and it was cool when I got to go to the Beachbody Challenge finals. I got to talk to him for a minute before we went on stage. I got to take a picture with him after, but it was cool as we was getting ready to leave. I got into the elevator, and it just so happened to be Tony Horton and Sagi Caleb, who's the creator of Body Beast. They were in the elevator, and I got to talk to them both for a few minutes, and then afterwards I got to talk to Tony Horton for about 10 or 15 minutes, and he gave me some advice about how to run with this thing. And it was just cool because he was a cool, down-to-earth dude he's there to help people, and he had found a way to make it sustainable. He had found a way to incorporate this into his life and showed how it vastly improved his life. And I feel like I took what he learned and put my own spin on it that worked for me. And I'm going to try to do the same thing as he did, as pass it on to other people. And take what you feel is important, discard what you feel don't resonate with you. And hopefully you can put it into your own habits and systems that you can achieve the same type of results.
He ended up inviting you out. He was going to do something, right?
What is it?
I think I remember you telling me, like, he asked you if you wanted to, but y'all had to leave or something. Do you know what? I thought he asked.
No, he was getting ready to
go do a workout or something.
I do. If I look back on it now, and if I was to meet him again, there's one thing I would do differently. We was getting ready to leave. We was getting ready to go back from Tennessee to West Virginia.
Yeah.
And we was on our way out down to the lobby. We was going to look at the pool, check that out, go to the lobby and leave. And we saw him in the elevator, and he was getting ready to hit a workout. And now, if I could go back, I would have just been like, "Hey, dude, can I join you?" And I would have we would have stayed like an hour longer to work out with him. But it was cool to be able to meet him.
Yeah, I think.
And he gave me some good advice to run with this thing. And I'm hopefully this is what this podcast will do. But I feel like there's other parts of the show's episodes we can dive into different aspects of my story and what they mean and stuff like that. But I feel like that's a general overview.
Yeah, I feel like
of where I came from and where I am now, and also. I do want to say that I feel like I don't want to say my information is better than other people, because there's so many people that are so much more intelligent than I am.
I mean, you're not like a doctor.
There's experts if you want to know serious nutritional info, go visit somebody like Dr. Rhonda Patrick's. But she goes so in depth on the mechanism and the biology and the neurochemistry of how these things work. And I won't for a minute tell you that I fully grasp these complex ideas and know every mechanism.
You're just going off your own experiences
of the body
and seeing how they've worked for you,
but,
as well as some nutritional. It's not like you don't know what you're doing.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. I may not be right,
but you're definitely not.
But I will.
Wrong.
But I will not lie to you. I will not try to deceive you. I'm honestly want to pass on this information. These are the things that work for me, and I take from these experts. And I feel like you don't need to know all this complex biology and chemistry. You need to know, but you need to know how these complex things manifest into actual everyday life. Like, what do these mean for you, and how do you implement these things? And that's what I feel like I've gained the knowledge from. Like, what's the basic principles that actually work? And what's the steps you can take to get further and further into your journey? And then it's like, if you question, it's like, well, these ain't my philosophies. These are philosophies I'm taking from experts and seeing what works for me and hopefully trying to pass them on with ideas and principles and habits and things like that that'll work for you as well. So I feel like that's kind of in a roundabout way, the goal of the podcast. Man, hopefully we can achieve it.
I think as long as we stick to the facts, don't get paid off by no Hollywood producers.
Hollywood producers.
Trying to come shut us down so they can push their agenda. I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, so what you could expect is coming the next episode, you can expect a mix of my experience, the experiences of other people I've talked to, a mix of that, and information from experts on what actually works and how to implement that into everyday life. And I feel like there's so much information and confusion out there. People have a hard time taking all this information in every direction and distilling like things to actually do and habits to actually make and how to do that. And hopefully some episodes coming up. I wanted to give a rundown on who I am and why you should listen to this podcast. But on episodes coming up, hopefully you can expect some real world advice and things you can start doing now or whenever you feel like you can start implementing to your life for the better, and hopefully some basic weight loss principles and exercise principles and how to properly eat and how to properly move and tools that you can implement if they resonate with you, and things you can say, hey, this is working for me, this part's not. You can keep, you can pick and choose, and just hopefully we can deliver some information that inspires and motivates, but less of that, and hopefully gives you real world advice on how to change things. I think that's the goal overall.
Hopefully one of these days we can have a whole podcast on the benefits of the squatty potty.
Squatty potty?
Squatty potty.
The squatty. We'll have to do an episode on the squatty potty.
Yeah, we won't go into that now, but it's like it's basically a bench for your toilet.
Do you have anything else you want to bring up?
I don't suppose so. I think it's been a good first episode. We explained.
I feel like there was a lot of rambling, but I feel like we touched on what I wanted to cover, and hopefully it came across okay. This is we're very newbies to this, so forgive us if it wasn't the best in the world, but we're going to try to continually get better and get the message across the correct way. So stay tuned. Anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
I don't suppose so, besides that if you are like 400 pounds and you're just not thinking you can do it, I've seen him do it. It is possible. It would be a super rough road. It's not going to be easy for sure. But it is possible with enough effort and hard work.
It is possible, and just know there is people who have done it, and doing our best to leave a roadmap for you to follow. I'm no one special. I'm somebody who, year after year, let myself get continually heavier. Year after year, put it off. Just let myself fall into this hole that I didn't think I could get out of, and I found a way. Like, I'm no one special. I don't have any magical discipline or willpower. Like, it's actually the opposite. But there is a path you can take, and people are trying to leave these tools behind for you to follow, for a path that you can follow, and just come join us, man. Like, you don't have to change overnight. You don't have to do nothing crazy. You just have to decide that it's time for you to start making changes and start looking at your life as a possibility that you can fulfill. Like, look in the future, and you can paint a picture of, if you start putting effort now and you start somewhere and you start making just even the smallest change year after year, day after day, that's going to add up, and you can paint a picture of where you'll be in 3 or 4 years. And then the opposite, what I realized was at 19, I was 330 pounds, and I had a vision of, if I continue these bad habits, if I continue down this path, you can also envision where you'll end in 3 or 4 years, and you can see that vision, and that's not a place you want to go. That's not a place we can I wish on anybody. Like, you end up in your own little hell. But there's this other path that people have found the way to walk, and we're just encouraging you to follow us, and we're going to give you the tools and tips to do it, and tell you exactly how we did it, and hold nothing back, and just follow along with us, man. Like, it's possible. Just step on the path and commit to trying. Don't commit to doing something crazy or awesome. Just commit that you're going to start looking for solutions and start trying to implement them in your life.
It's not just going to be one day and you're done. Yep. It's an entire lifestyle change.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle change over years and years. So don't worry about doing anything crazy or drastic. Just start with the smallest thing, and hopefully the next episode we'll start delivering some of the things that you can start with and that you can do. So, do you have anything else to add?
I think that is it, my brother.
This has been the first episode of the Beating Obesity podcast with me, Timothy Maynard, and my brother Sean. If you want to connect with me a little bit more, I do have an Instagram page at Tim Maynard Fitness, TIMMAYNARD Fitness. Follow me there. You can reach out to me and let me know what you think about the podcast, and ask questions and all that good stuff. Hope you all guys have a good day, and hope you enjoyed the podcast. There's plenty more to come. Please subscribe, and if you found it interesting, share with some people you think could help. Peace.